this trade is fascinating, not only because it involves an all-star in Bradley Beal, it's just the ripple in the pond of the NBA on draft week has so many. It's a huge splash, to say the least.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to land with Chris Paul here, because now Paul is on the Wizards, and part of your coverage was talking about Washington wanting to hold on to Paul just to trade him. They're not going to cut him. Is that still your belief 48 hours later right now, David?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that's their intent. Now, certainly, I mean, obviously Chris Paul wants to play for the Lakers or the Clippers. I don't know which one is more important to him. I think they both are viable for different reasons for him. He certainly doesn't want to play for the Wizards. I mean, I think that's obvious that at 38 he wants to be on a contender for the last couple of years of his career, and the Wizards are not going to be a contender for a while. But it's just a question of, are the Wizards obligated to release him so he can just go sign with the Lakers or the Clippers on a minimum deal? Certainly they want to sign him to a minimum deal and don't want to spend, bring his $30 million it's $28 million guaranteed for next year onto their books. But the Wizards are under no obligation to do that for him. I mean, everybody respects Chris Paul and knows what he's done for the game, but the Wizards, it's a business. They have to protect their interests. And the best thing for them to do is to trade him and get, either a young player or players, or more realistically, get some draft picks out of the deal, because all they got from Denver was a bunch of second-round picks. They didn't get any first-round picks. There's some pick swaps, but they're so far down the road, it's not going to matter, right? It's not going to matter, at least in the short term. So I think that they will hold out for a while, at least, to see if they can generate a trade with either the Lakers or the Clippers. And I think there's a chance they could try to get a third team involved that maybe has some draft capital that they wouldn't mind putting into the deal for a young veteran and expanding the deal. The Wizards do have a couple of young players that maybe teams would be interested in, like Corey Kispert and Denny Avdia. So I could see a third team maybe being interested in one of those teams, or maybe even the Lakers or Clippers being interested in one of those players. But at the end of the day, the Wizards, I think, goal is to try to get some draft capital out of trading Chris Paul, back out west.
Well, I mean, and that's down the road, or potentially maybe even later this week. Who knows? Or when the new league year begins. David Aldridge of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show. But the most immediate, newsiest, juiciest item that Chris Paul threw out there in an interview with the New York Times on Monday, David, outside of the fact that he found out from his 14-year-old in a text that he'd been traded. Happy Father's Day to him. But him saying how the Suns wanted to go in a different direction, and he said Matt, meaning Ishbia, the owner, and Isaiah, meaning Thomas. Is Isaiah Thomas in the ear of the owner of the Suns and giving him ideas or influencing him in a way that Chris Paul doesn't mention James Jones, the general manager of the Suns, when he says about going in a different direction, David?
Well, it certainly was, it was certainly rumored during the playoffs, because Isaiah was at several Suns games, I think, in Phoenix. Someone, I'm trying to remember, and I don't want to put anybody's name out there if I don't know exactly, but I know someone wrote that he was going to have some sort of official role with the team, and the team denied it and said that wasn't true. But it certainly appears that Isaiah Thomas has some sort of, kitchen cabinet type of role with Matt Ishbia in terms of advising him on potential trades and things. So that does not surprise me. But I think at the end of the day, this is Matt Ishbia really trying to drive this train. He's been very upfront about his intent and his aggressiveness. Moved quickly to fire Monty Williams and hire Frank Vogel to be the coach, and the first thing out of the first move he made seconds after acquiring the team was to trade half the team and all of their draft picks for Kevin Durant. So he's been intentional about what he wants to do with that team, and falls in line with that. Getting Bradley Beal, for not very much, in all honesty, and that's not a criticism of Chris Paul or Landry Shamet, but for a 3-time All-Star, I think most people thought you would get something more in terms of draft picks and draft capital. Matt Ishbia has been incredibly aggressive about it and has that team poised to challenge the Nuggets, I think, and the Lakers and Clippers and Warriors at the top of the Western Conference next year.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.